Inmates will test you. So let me give you guys a quick story time of how an inmate tried me, but it wasn't what you think. He didn't try me when it come to something physical. Okay, so I was working at the federal prison by this time, and we had to wear certain shirts, and the shirts that they had us wear, they was nice shirts, man. And mine kind of hugged my arms a little bit, and you kind of see my arms through the shirt. And anybody with some muscles or whatever, you can see them. You know what I'm saying? So the inmates already assume that you work out. They're already sizing you up. So if you go in there and you have any kind of muscles, or you look like you work out, or you just fit overall, they will test you to see what you know. They will size you up, and they will try to pick your brain to see what information you will give them. So this particular day, I was in the unit, making my rounds or whatever, and you always have guys in the unit that work out. They don't supposed to work out in the unit, but you got guys that do it in their cells. They sneak and do it under the stairs or something like that. So it was this one guy, little short guy. You know what I'm saying? They do a lot of push-ups, a lot of burpees and stuff like that. And he see me, and he don't ask me a direct question, but he starts small, and that's what the inmates do. They start small and then they work their way up, depending on how you answer the questions, depending on what you say, depending on your body language, your facial expression. So it can start really, really small, and then it can escalate to something else depending on how you answer. So we was just talking about working out. Mind you, I'm not giving him anything personal. We're talking about working out, and they just ask you questions to try to see what you can do, because there's always a guy there that work out all the time, and he just think he can do everything better than everybody. So every prison is gonna have one of them. And this particular guy, a little short guy, stocky, look like he do a lot of push-ups or whatnot. And he was talking about working out and asking me, what I do in the world. That's what they call it, what I do in the world or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And I tell them, I lift weights. Y'all know that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not locked up, so I'm not doing a lot of body weight exercises. I'm actually doing lifting weights, and they didn't have weights where I was at the time. Maybe they had some years before I got there, but um, he just started talking about building muscle, and what they have in there to eat, and they eat a lot of mackerel, which is like tuna, which is high in protein. They was talking about that, and he bringing up supplements, okay, and he was asking me about creatine. Like, how, man, you take creatine? I'm like, yeah. At the time, I was on creatine and protein powder. So those were the two supplements that I was using. And he just started talking about it, and asking questions about creatine, and what creatine do, because he probably done researched it or whatnot. And he talking about what creatine do, and I'm just listening to him, and he was talking about, man, just imagine if I had some, if or we had some creatine. I think he said, just imagine if he had some creatine. He was like, man, just imagine if I could get a hold to some creatine. So if you think about it, that's his way of asking me without asking me, to see my response to what he just said. And with me, that was falling on deaf ears. Okay, I didn't say nothing when he said that. He was like, "Man, I can only imagine what I look like with some creatine, or man, if we could get some creatine in here." He was saying little slick stuff. You know what I'm saying? Wanting me to engage in the conversation a little bit more towards what he was talking about. He really wanted me to say something when he was saying that he can only imagine how they would look if they get creatine. Okay. And I wasn't going. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going. Now, he didn't ask me. He had enough respect for me not to ask me that. But in so many words, he did ask me that. You know what I'm saying? And the conversation was over. You know what I'm saying? When he said that, I kept it moving. You know what I'm saying? Because that was his way of trying to start the conversation. I mean, he's trying to ask me in so many words, depending on how I responded to it or whatever. And then, I didn't bite, And that's something that they do. They throw their bait out there, and some people fall for it. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't the one that was going to fall for it because I already knew where that conversation was going. So in that situation, you have to go ahead and cut that short. You know what I'm saying? Don't respond or just walk off. You know what I'm saying? Or just say, man, if you think I'm finna bring you something in, you dead wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or just get rid of the whole conversation overall. But I wasn't going for that. He know I wasn't going for it. He just had to throw the bait out there to see if I would bite. Okay. And that was just one situation that I dealt with. And there was a lot of situations that I was in where guys say little slick stuff and they think I'm going to respond to it. And, it go a little bit further. But, I just listened. I just kept walking, you know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't even about to go there with you, dog. Because I'm not bringing nothing in. So I don't care what you look like with creatine. It don't matter to me. I know I'm in the world. I can get some creatine. But you, my friend, you are not getting it because I'm not bringing no creatine to you. So that was just one example of how inmates will test you.